What have you been doing the last few years?
I did an opera at the Royal Opera House. I did a play at the National Theatre. I made a record out of a bomb exploding in Libya called The End of Silence. I did some music for a play on Broadway called Machinal. I made an evening of music made entirely from the sounds of a city in Poland called Łódź. I made an album called The Recording on the stage of the Deutsche Oper in Berlin in front of an audience. I produced an album by a band called These Ghosts on NX Records, which is a record label I run with Goldsmiths University. I produced a band called Hajira. I did a new soundtrack for a BFI silent sci-fi movie called A Message from Mars. I made a piece of music out of 20 different pianos from around the world. And I made the longest single in the world called Crisis. Oh yes, and I DJ'd a bit. And lastly, I have a job as the director of a new radiophonic lecture.
Why did you start making music people can sing along to again?
I think partly because I'd been trying to think, my previous record called The End of Silence was made out of a bomb exploding in Libya, and it was obviously quite an intense project. And so as a consequence I wanted to do something that wasn't quite so heavy. One of the previous records was the record I made out of a pig, and that was quite an intense experience. I guess there's something about coming back to melody, something that people can sing and share. In a way, it was almost like having a summer off. It was like I'm not trying to change the world, just trying to make music for pleasure. Again.
Does the world need any more music?
That's definitely a Matthew Herbert question. He told you to say that, didn't he?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The world could do with so much more music. I think music is such a great unifier, if you know what I mean. It brings people together.
There's loads and loads of music out there, and maybe it's oversaturated, but at the same time it's like I think that we're still got so much more to discover.
How do you reconcile the idea of having fun and the necessity to address real issues?
Yeah, it's a funny position to be in, to think about the idea of fun at this sort of time when the world is going so badly wrong. There's a sort of financial meltdown, there's a state of perpetual war that seems to be encouraged certainly by the American government. There's no reliance on oil, which is doing us no good and doing the planet no good. There's climate change happening. So there's a lot of big issues going on.
The political aspect of music is very important to me. I think coming from a country like Nigeria, there have been so many sort of issues in our history. And one of the people who really used their voice to sort of highlight these issues was a musician called Fela Kuti. And he really, really believed in music as the weapon. In fact, he said music is a weapon.
It is quite powerful in a way. If you can get the right ingredients together to really empower people with your music, then, I'd love to be a part of that as well.
And so when I was writing this record, I started to think about family, and yet it's very weird when you hear about children being killed around the world. It's very difficult to think, just sing about how great your life is without acknowledging that other people are struggling. But I guess with this record, there's an attempt to do both things. It's an attempt to be about something and to address some of those issues, but at the same time for it to be pleasurable, to be fun, to actually just to prioritise love over violence. Yeah, it's trying to find a middle path between those two positions, or at least on this record.
What kind of noises did you use on this record?
So I'd made a record called Tesco under the name Wish Mountain about 4 or 5 years ago. I made it out of the top 10 selling items in the supermarket. So that was toilet roll and chocolate and coffee and bread and things like that. And so I used a lot of those sounds on this record just because that record didn't have any melody or songs on it. So I used some of those old noises that I had lying around. And some of them inform the music and others are just texture and things like that. So yeah, it's more about the lyrics and about the melodic structure and about the songwriting, I guess, rather than the noises on this record.
What does it mean to have a voice?
What does it mean to have a voice? I think it means that you're able to express yourself.
To be yourself as much as possible, and in such a way where people feel that and gravitate toward that means that you have a voice. It means people are listening to you.
Tell me about the singers and musicians on this record.
Well, we had some great musicians, so the horns were arranged with me, with Ben Castle. The guitar player is Dave Okumu from The Invisible, amongst many other things. Sam Best playing keyboards and organ and things like that. I'm working with two singers for the first time on this project. One is Ade, who used to do backing vocals for Amy Winehouse and sings on the new Kindness album.
Is it more of a liberation to sing your own music or someone else's?
Oh, nice. It's much of a liberation to sing someone else's, to be honest with you. And if I'm doing my own things, my own music, I tend to judge it even before I've sort of played it for anyone else. So it's much easier to do someone else's.
And Rahel, who sings with Hajira, amongst other people.
I think it's more of a liberation to sing my own music. It's my expression, so it's liberating to be able to say what I feel. But it depends as well, because, you know, if I usually think the elements of a really good song is something that resonates with everyone. You know, if you hear a song or, you know, a pop song that you really, really like, and it's kind of like, oh, I feel that way too, you know, then it's easy and yeah. But yeah, I think it is more liberating doing your own stuff in a way, because, you know, it's your own voice.
Both got amazing voices. I feel very lucky to be working with them.
Why did you choose Ade for one song and Rahel for another?
That's an interesting question. I guess sometimes it's to do with range, where it sits in someone's voice, and sometimes it's to do with colour. I think Ade has the most amazing rich tone to his voice.
Matthew is someone who I've admired from afar for a long time. If I had a bucket list and I had to sign things off, that's one thing that I've signed off, so I feel really, really privileged, and I'm very happy to be doing it.
Rahel has another beautiful voice, but she has an incredible range, so she can go from very low to very high. As a consequence, their voices suit different styles of music and different ways of singing. So you end up, choosing different voices for different colours, I guess.
Matthew Herbert is someone that, I heard about many, many years ago, and I remember just feeling like, wow, I would really, really, really love to be a part of his work. And then a few years later I was, but in the chorus, just in the choir of 100 people, and it was really inspiring. So yeah, I never would have thought that I would be on his record.
What does the title, The Shakes, mean to you?
There's a few things that it makes me think of. It makes me think of fear when you've got the shakes. And you're just sort of like, oh. It makes me think of a fever when you've got the fever as well, because I get the shakes when I've got a fever.
It just reminds me of every time I'm about to go on stage to perform. I get the shakes.
I sort of imagine, because it's all about Matthew Herbert and his relationship with his kids at the moment, because he's got Bo and Hunter, these little boys. It's got to do with, like, you know, being a parent and becoming a parent, and kind of having to go through like all these different emotions with these little beings, and like it can be quite a scary ride. And dancing, you know, you kind of shake when you dance. Yeah. So
Why did you make this record now and not 4 years ago?
I think because one of the most important things going on in music right now is the ability to make music out of anything, out of sounds that are from anything. You can make a piece of music out of a watermelon, or about the revolution in Syria, or about UKIP. I think that's a fundamental revolution in what music can actually be. It's a kind of form of realism, if you like, or documentary. We've never had that possibility in music before. Really, for the last few years, that's what I've been trying to think about, is sound in music, and that's the sort of motivating force for a lot of my music. So I didn't want to just make music just for the sake of it. I wanted there to be a purpose to it, and I wanted to be a story behind it and everything like that. So yeah, thank you very much. No, not the I was going to shake your hand. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm messing